The desert stretched endlessly, waves of golden sand shifting under the hot winds. The twin suns of Mars blazed in the sky, turning the air into a furnace. Sergeant Daniel Carter wiped the sweat from his forehead and adjusted his visor. His patrol shift was almost over, but he still had miles to go before he could return to the Terran outpost. Carter had been stationed on Mars for over a year now. The frontier was harsh, dangerous, and isolated, but he had gotten used to it. His job was simple: patrol the borders, check for any signs of danger, and report back. Most of the time, there was nothing but sand and rock. But today was different. As he walked along a ridge, something unusual caught his eye: a dark shape half buried in the sand below. He narrowed his eyes. It wasn't a rock or a broken drone. It looked like a person. His training kicked in immediately. Carter slid down the dune, his boots sinking into the hot sand. As he got closer, he realized it was a woman, but not a human woman. Her skin was a deep shade of blue, her hair a shimmering silver that seemed to glow in the sunlight. She wore strange, tattered clothing, and her body was covered in bruises and scratches. Her face was peaceful, but her breathing was shallow. She was barely alive. "A Vasari," Carter muttered under his breath. The Vasari were an alien race that rarely interacted with humans. They were known for their advanced technology and secretive nature. What was she doing here, alone in the middle of the desert? Carter crouched beside her and checked for any injuries. Her pulse was weak, but she was alive. He reached for his canteen, opened it, and gently poured a few drops of water onto her lips. "Come on, wake up," he murmured. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her lips parted slightly, and she made a soft sound. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing striking violet eyes. She looked at him, confused and afraid. "Hey, it's okay," Carter said, raising his hands to show he wasn't a threat. "You're safe." The Vasari woman tried to speak, but her voice was dry and weak. Instead, she grabbed onto his arm, her fingers trembling. Carter knew she wouldn't survive out here much longer. She needed help. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her body weak from exhaustion. She didn't resist. She simply clung to him, as if he were the only solid thing in a world of shifting sand. Carter activated his communicator. "Sergeant Carter to Outpost Bravo. I found a survivor. She's Vasari. Weak condition. Requesting immediate medical assistance." A moment later, the radio crackled. "Copy that, Sergeant. Return to base ASAP. Command will want to know about this." Carter adjusted his grip and started walking. The journey back wouldn't be easy, but he didn't care. This woman had survived something terrible, and he was determined to get her to safety. As he carried her through the endless desert, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning of something much bigger. Sergeant Daniel Carter moved steadily across the burning desert, his arms wrapped securely around the alien woman. She was light, far lighter than a human, but he could feel the heat radiating from her body. She was weak, dehydrated, and injured. He had to get her back to the outpost before it was too late. The desert wind howled around him, kicking up clouds of fine red sand. Each step was difficult, but Carter pushed forward, focusing on the small blinking signal on his visor. The outpost wasn't far now. The woman in his arms stirred slightly. Her violet eyes fluttered open again, confused and unfocused. She looked up at him, her lips dry and cracked. "You?" she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "Yeah, I got you," Carter said, adjusting his grip. "You're safe now." She blinked slowly, as if trying to understand. Then, without warning, she tightened her grip on his armor, her fingers weak but desperate. She didn't speak again, but Carter could feel the silent plea in her touch. He picked up the pace. Arrival at the outpost. The gates of Outpost Bravo came into view, a collection of metal buildings surrounded by tall defensive walls. The red flag of the Terran Defense Force waved against the hot winds. As Carter approached, the guards on duty immediately noticed the alien woman in his arms. "Sergeant Carter, what the hell is that?" one of them called out. "A survivor," Carter replied. "She needs medical attention, now." The gate hissed open, and Carter walked straight to the infirmary. The base wasn't big, mostly a research and military station, but it had a decent medical unit. Inside, Dr. Elaine Harper, the base's chief medic, rushed over. She was a no-nonsense woman with short black hair and tired eyes. "You brought in a Vazari?" she asked, already scanning the woman with her medical tablet. "Found her in the desert. Barely alive," Carter said. "Can you help her?" Dr. Harper sighed. "I'll do my best. Put her on the bed." Carter carefully laid the Vazari woman on the examination table. She made a soft sound but didn't resist. Her violet eyes never left Carter's face. "You're safe," he reassured her again. Dr. Harper connected a few sensors to the alien's arm. The machine beeped as it analyzed her vitals. "She's severely dehydrated, suffering from heat exhaustion, and has multiple bruises and minor injuries," Harper said. "But she's stable. She just needs rest." Carter exhaled in relief. "Good. At least she'll make it." Harper glanced at him. "Do you know who she is?" Carter shook his head. "No idea. She hasn't said much." As if hearing him, the Vazari woman turned her head slightly. Her gaze was still locked onto Carter. Then, with great effort, she whispered, "Rilana." Carter leaned closer. "Is that your name?" She gave the slightest nod. "Rilana," he repeated. "All right, Rilana, you're safe now." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she relaxed slightly. The commander's questions. 2 hours later, Carter stood in the command center in front of Commander Briggs, the officer in charge of Outpost Bravo. Briggs was a hardened veteran with graying hair and a permanent frown. "So let me get this straight," Briggs said, arms crossed. "You found a Vazari woman, alone in the desert, half dead, and you brought her here." "Yes, sir," Carter replied. Briggs sighed. "The Vazari don't travel alone, Carter. They move in groups. So where's the rest of her people?" "I don't know, sir, but something happened to her out there. Maybe an attack, maybe a crash. I think she was running from something." Briggs didn't look convinced. "And you trust her?" Carter hesitated. "I don't know if I trust her, sir, but I do know she's not a threat." Briggs leaned back. "All right. The higher-ups will want to know about this. Until then, she stays under observation. If she remembers anything, you report it immediately." "Understood." "Yes, sir," Carter said. Briggs waved him off. Dismissed. Rilana's unspoken fear. That night, Carter visited the infirmary. Rilana was awake, sitting up on the bed, drinking water slowly. Her color looked better, and the exhaustion in her eyes had lessened. She looked up as he entered, her eyes immediately locking onto him. "Feeling better?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. Thanks to you." Her voice was still weak, but she was speaking more now. Carter pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "You remember anything?" he asked gently. Her hands tightened around the cup she held. A shadow crossed her face. "I was with my people," she said slowly. "We were traveling. Then, fire, screams. I ran." Carter frowned. "An attack?" Rilana nodded. "I think so. But I do not know who." Carter could tell the memory scared her. He wanted to push for more information, but he also didn't want to overwhelm her. "You're safe now," he told her instead. Rilana stared at him for a long moment, then, without a word, reached out and took his hand in hers. Carter stiffened slightly. Her touch was warm, hesitant, but firm. It wasn't just gratitude. There was something deeper in the way she held onto him. "You saved me," she whispered. "Now, I will not leave you." Carter blinked. "What?" She tightened her grip. "You found me. I am yours now." Carter had no idea what that meant, but something told him this was only the beginning. Sergeant Daniel Carter sat in the dimly lit infirmary, staring at Rilana's hand still wrapped around his. Her grip was light, yet unshakable, as if letting go would mean losing everything. Her violet eyes held a strange intensity, a silent promise he didn't fully understand. "You don't have to stay with me," Carter said carefully. "You're safe here. The doctors will take care of you." Rilana shook her head. "No," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I stay with you." Carter exhaled. He wasn't sure what to make of this. Was it gratitude, fear, or something else entirely? Before he could ask, Dr. Harper entered the room, breaking the moment. "Good news," Harper said, checking the medical scanner. "She's recovering faster than I expected. Whatever Vasari biology is made of, it's impressive." Rilana said nothing, but she kept her eyes on Carter. Harper glanced between them, raising an eyebrow. "She's been holding your hand the entire time." Carter rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, seems like it." Harper smirked. "Well, aren't you lucky? Seems like you've got a personal bodyguard now." Carter ignored the remark. "Any updates on what happened to her people?" Harper sighed. "Command is still trying to figure that out. There are no reports of Vasari ships landing in this sector, which means either they were hiding, or someone didn't want us to know they were here." Carter frowned. "That's not good." Harper nodded. "Exactly. And if they were attacked, whoever did it might still be out there." A cold feeling settled in Carter's stomach. Something about this situation didn't sit right. He turned back to Rilana. "Do you remember anything else? Anything that could help us?" Rilana hesitated. Then, slowly, she whispered, "The sky was burning." Carter stiffened. "Burning." She nodded. "Flames, ships falling, screams, and then silence." A heavy silence filled the room. Harper's smirk was gone now, replaced by a grim expression. "Sounds like a massacre," she muttered. Carter clenched his jaw. Someone had wiped out Rilana's people. And if they were still nearby, Outpost Bravo could be next. The warning comes too late. Carter left the infirmary and headed straight for the command center. He needed answers. But before he could reach the door, the base alarms blared to life. "Alert! Perimeter breach detected." The automated voice echoed through the halls. Carter's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the control room. Inside, Commander Briggs was already shouting orders as red warning lights flashed across the monitors. "What's going on?" Carter demanded. Briggs pointed to the main screen. "Unidentified ships just entered our airspace. They're not Vasari, and they're definitely not ours." Carter looked at the screen. 5 dark, angular ships hovered in the sky above the outpost, their black hulls almost blending into the night. He had never seen ships like these before, but they radiated one thing: danger. Then, without warning, they opened fire. Under attack. Explosions rocked the outpost as plasma blasts struck the defensive walls. Soldiers ran to battle stations, gun turrets powered up, and alarms blared. Carter sprinted toward the armory, grabbing his gear as chaos erupted around him. His first thought was Rilana. He had to get to her before a massive explosion tore through the infirmary wing. No. Carter ran toward the smoke and fire, pushing past debris and injured soldiers. His heart pounded as he reached the collapsed section of the building. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see. Then, from the rubble, movement. Rilana, she pushed herself up, coughing, her blue skin streaked with dust and ash. But she was alive. Carter rushed to her side. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but they are here." "Who?" Before she could answer, a deafening roar filled the air. From the smoke emerged a towering figure, 8 feet tall, armored in black, with glowing red eyes. It wasn't human. It wasn't Vasari. It was something else. The creature raised its weapon, a massive energy blade, and charged straight at them. The fight for survival. Carter reacted instantly, raising his rifle and firing. Bullets sparked off the creature's armor, barely slowing it down. It swung its energy blade, forcing Carter to dive aside. Before it could attack again, Real Anna moved. With a speed Carter hadn't seen before, she leaped at the attacker, her movements fluid and precise. She grabbed a fallen soldier's sidearm and fired a concentrated energy blast straight into the creature's exposed joint. The shot hit true, and the creature staggered back, roaring in pain. Carter didn't waste the opening. He grabbed a grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, and threw it. Boom! The explosion sent the creature flying, crashing into the rubble. Smoke filled the air. Silence. Carter and Real Anna stood there, breathing heavily. The battle outside still raged, but for now, they had survived. Carter looked at her, shocked. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Real Anna wiped dust from her face. "I do not remember, but my body remembers." Carter narrowed his eyes. Whoever she was before, she wasn't just a simple traveler. She was a warrior. A new mission. The outpost was in chaos. The unknown attackers had breached the outer defenses, and more of those towering creatures were storming the base. Carter grabbed Real Anna's hand. "We need to get to the command center. Now." She didn't resist. "I stay with you." As they ran through the burning outpost, Carter knew one thing for certain. This was no random attack. Someone wanted Real Anna dead, and they were willing to destroy everything in their path to make sure of it. The outpost was burning. Sirens blared across the base as soldiers scrambled to defend against the unknown attackers. Plasma fire streaked through the air, explosions shaking the ground beneath them. Sergeant Daniel Carter gritted his teeth as he led Real Anna through the chaos. His rifle was loaded, but he knew they were outmatched. The black armored creatures were stronger, faster, and nearly impossible to kill. "We have to reach the command center," he said, pulling Real Anna behind cover as another explosion rocked the base. She nodded, gripping the stolen energy pistol tightly. Despite the fear in her eyes, she moved with purpose. Whatever memories she had lost, her instincts were sharp, too sharp for someone who claimed not to remember her past. Carter didn't have time to think about that now. He peeked over the barricade and saw 2 enemy soldiers advancing. Their heavy boots crunched against the debris, their glowing red eyes scanning for survivors. Carter aimed carefully and fired. His bullet struck the nearest enemy in the head. The creature staggered but didn't fall. "Damn it," Carter growled. Their armor was too strong. Before he could fire again, Real Anna moved. With blinding speed, she sprinted forward, dodging enemy fire. In one swift motion, she slid under the nearest attacker, raised her pistol, and fired a precise shot into the gap between its shoulder plates. The creature let out a distorted roar and collapsed. Carter didn't waste the opening. He fired at the second soldier's exposed joint, just like Real Anna had done. The bullet hit its mark, and the creature stumbled. Carter finished it with a grenade, sending the enemy flying. Real Anna turned to him, her violet eyes filled with something unreadable. "You are fast," she said. Carter smirked. "And you fight like you've done this before." Real Anna hesitated, her expression tightening. "I do not remember, but I feel it." Carter didn't press further. They had bigger problems. Inside the command center, they pushed forward, dodging through ruined hallways and fire-lit corridors. Finally, they'd reached the command center. The reinforced steel doors were still intact, but Carter had to punch in his security code. Twice before they slid open. Inside, Commander Briggs and a group of officers were huddled around the tactical display. The map of the base was covered in red markers. Enemy forces had breached multiple sectors. Briggs turned, relief flashing across his face when he saw Carter. "Good, you're still alive." His eyes flickered to Real Anna. "And so is she." "We need to evacuate," Carter said. "These things aren't just here for the outpost. They want her." Briggs's face darkened. "We figured that out real quick." He gestured to the screens. "They're targeting every part of the base, except this one. They're hunting something or someone." His gaze settled on Raylana. She stood tall, despite the situation. "They follow me," she admitted. "They did this to my people." Carter clenched his fists. "Who are they?" Raylana took a deep breath. "They are called the Drakthul, a warrior race. Conquerors. My people. Vasari. We ran from them for centuries. But they always find us." Briggs exhaled sharply. "Fantastic. We just got caught in an interstellar war." Carter glanced at the screen again. The base wouldn't hold for long. "We need to get her out of here. If she's what they want, keeping her here will only get us all killed." Briggs nodded. "We're already working on an evacuation plan. We have one dropship left. If we can reach it, we can get her off-world." Carter checked his rifle. "Then we better move fast. The escape begins." Briggs led the way, gathering what remained of his soldiers. The outpost had suffered heavy losses, but there were still men and women ready to fight. The plan was simple: create a diversion, get to the dropship, and leave before the Drakthul overwhelmed them completely. Carter and Raylana stayed near the front, moving swiftly through the ruined hallways. Every few steps, Raylana's eyes flickered with something Carter couldn't quite read. "Fear? Guilt? You all right?" he asked as they ducked into a supply room for cover. She hesitated. "If I leave, will they stop?" Carter wasn't sure how to answer. "Maybe. But staying here won't help." She looked at him, her violet eyes softening. "You could have left me in the desert," she said quietly. Carter held her gaze. "That's not who I am." Raylana nodded, gripping his arm for a brief moment before they moved on, reaching the hangar. The hangar was within sight, but the Drakthul weren't making it easy. Their monstrous soldiers blocked the entrance, weapons glowing with energy. Briggs signaled to his men. "We hold the line here. Carter, get her to the ship." Carter hesitated. "Commander." Briggs grabbed his shoulder. "That's an order, Sergeant. Get her out of here. We'll buy you time." Carter's throat tightened, but he nodded. He turned to Raylana. "Stay close." She didn't argue. The two of them sprinted toward the dropship, dodging fire as Briggs and his team laid down covering shots. The Drakthul roared in anger, but Carter didn't stop. He shoved Raylana up the ramp, then jumped in after her, slamming his fist against the door controls. The ship roared to life. Engines flared, and within seconds, they were airborne. Through the window, Carter saw the base growing smaller. The last thing he saw was a massive explosion as the command center went up in flames. Briggs and his soldiers had made their stand. Raylana touched his arm gently. "I am sorry," she whispered. Carter closed his eyes. "We'll make them pay for this." The dropship soared into the sky, leaving Mars behind. But Carter knew this was far from over. The Drakthul wouldn't stop hunting. And now, neither would he. The dropship soared through the dark sky, leaving behind the burning remains of Outpost Bravo. Carter sat in the pilot's seat, gripping the controls tightly. The weight of what had just happened pressed heavily on his chest. The outpost was gone. Briggs and his soldiers had made their last stand. And the Drakthul were still out there, hunting Raylana. Carter glanced at her. She sat beside him, staring out the window with a distant look in her violet eyes. She hadn't spoken since they left. "You okay?" he asked, breaking the silence. She hesitated, then shook her head. "No. Your people. They died because of me." Carter exhaled. They died fighting. It was their choice. She looked down, guilt clear on her face. "But they wouldn't have had to fight if I wasn't here." Carter didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, she was right. But it wasn't her fault. The Drakthul were the ones to blame. And he wasn't about to let them get away with it. He turned his attention back to the controls. "We need a plan. The Drakthul won't stop until they find you." Raylana's expression hardened. "Then we stop running. We fight." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Just the two of us. Against an entire army." She nodded. I remember now. The Drakthol destroyed my home. My people fled, but I was part of the defense force. I stayed behind to fight. She clenched her fists. I will not run again. Carter studied her for a moment. She wasn't just some lost survivor. She was a soldier, and she was done being hunted. He smirked. All right, let's fight. Landing on the moon, Carter adjusted their course. The dropship was running low on fuel, and Earth wasn't an option. The Drakthol would track them there. Instead, he set a course for the nearest lunar base, a small abandoned facility on the far side of the moon. As they descended, the gray surface of the moon stretched out below them. The base came into view, a cluster of metal domes and landing pads, long since abandoned by human forces. Carter set the ship down and powered off the engines. This place should keep us hidden for a while. Ril Anna unbuckled her seat. Then we prepare for battle. Preparing for war. The base was dusty and silent, but most of the equipment was still functional. Carter and Ril Anna searched through the storage rooms, finding weapons, armor, and supplies. Carter strapped on a reinforced combat vest and checked his rifle. If we're doing this, we need a strategy. Ril Anna picked up a sleek energy rifle, testing its weight. The Drakthol rely on brute strength, but they have a weakness, joints between their armor plates. If we strike there, we can bring them down. Carter nodded. Good to know. But we can't take them all head on. We need to lure them in, set traps. They spent the next few hours fortifying the base. Carter rigged explosives near the entrance, while Ril Anna modified the base's defense turrets. As they worked, Carter watched her. She moved with confidence, her every action precise. She was no longer the lost alien he had found in the desert. She was a warrior. The enemy arrives. Their preparations were finished just in time. The moment Carter activated the base's scanners, alarms blared. Incoming ships, he said. They found us. Ril Anna's eyes glowed with determination. Then let them come. Outside, the black Drakthol warships descended. Their monstrous soldiers dropped onto the lunar surface, their glowing red eyes searching for their prey. Carter took position behind cover, gripping his rifle. Stick to the plan. We take them out one by one. Ril Anna nodded. Together, the battle began. The battle for survival. The first wave of Drakthol charged forward, but they were met with a hail of gunfire and turret blasts. Carter took down 2 enemies with precise shots to their exposed joints, while Ril Anna moved like a shadow, striking fast and disappearing before they could retaliate. Explosions tore through the battlefield as Carter detonated the traps they had set. The Drakthol roared in anger, but they kept coming. One of the larger creatures lunged at Carter, swinging its massive energy blade. He barely dodged in time, rolling to the side and firing a shot into its exposed knee. The creature stumbled, and Ril Anna finished it with a blast to its head. Carter grinned. Nice shot. Ril Anna smirked. You are not bad yourself. The final stand. More enemies poured in. The battle dragged on, and Carter felt exhaustion creeping in. They were outnumbered, and the enemy wasn't slowing down. Then the ground trembled. A massive Drakthol warlord stepped onto the battlefield. Unlike the others, his armor was nearly flawless, with no weak points visible. He raised a massive energy hammer and pointed at Ril Anna. You will die here, Vasari. The warlord growled. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, your people. They died because of me. Carter exhaled. They died fighting. It was their choice. She looked down, guilt clear on her face. But they wouldn't have had to fight if I wasn't here. Carter didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, she was right. But it wasn't her fault. The Drakthol were the ones to blame. And he wasn't about to let them get away with it. He turned his attention back to the controls. We need a plan. The Drakthol won't stop until they find you. Ril Anna's expression hardened. Then we stop running. We fight. Carter raised an eyebrow. Just the two of us. Against an entire army. She nodded. I remember now. The Drakthul destroyed my home. My people fled, but I was part of the defense force. I stayed behind to fight. She clenched her fists. I will not run again. Carter studied her for a moment. She wasn't just some lost survivor. She was a soldier. And she was done being hunted. He smirked. All right, let's fight. Landing on the moon, Carter adjusted their course. The dropship was running low on fuel, and Earth wasn't an option. The Drakthul would track them there. Instead, he set a course for the nearest lunar base, a small abandoned facility on the far side of the moon. As they descended, the gray surface of the moon stretched out below them. The base came into view, a cluster of metal domes and landing pads, long since abandoned by human forces. Carter set the ship down and powered off the engines. This place should keep us hidden for a while. Anna unbuckled her seat. Then we prepare for battle. Preparing for war. The base was dusty and silent, but most of the equipment was still functional. Carter and Anna searched through the storage rooms, finding weapons, armor, and supplies. Anna narrowed her eyes. Not today. She moved first, dodging the warlord's strike and firing at his head. The shot barely scratched his armor. Carter gritted his teeth. We need a new plan. Anna glanced at the explosives they had left. Can you get him to the landing pad? Carter smirked. I like where this is going. He fired at the warlord, drawing his attention. The massive creature roared and charged after him. Carter ran toward the landing pad, dodging swings of the deadly hammer. Now, he shouted. Anna fired at the ground beneath the warlord's feet. The explosive charges detonated, sending the massive enemy flying into the air. For a moment, there was silence. Then the warlord's body crashed onto the jagged lunar rocks. The remaining Drakthul hesitated. Their leader was dead. Carter stepped forward, aiming his rifle. Leave now, or end up like him. The Drakthul hesitated for only a second before retreating. Their ships lifted off, disappearing into the void. Victory. For now. Carter exhaled, lowering his gun. We did it. Anna stood beside him, watching the sky. They will return. Carter nodded. Yeah, but next time, we'll be ready. She turned to him, her expression softening. You saved me again. Carter chuckled. Guess you're stuck with me now. Anna smiled. I do not mind. As the lunar base stood silent once more, Carter knew one thing for sure. This fight wasn't over. But with Anna at his side, he was ready for whatever came next. The moon was silent again. The Drakthul warships had retreated, leaving behind only the wreckage of battle. Carter leaned against a damaged console inside the abandoned base, cleaning his rifle. His body ached from the fight, but his mind was sharper than ever. We won, he muttered, but he knew it wouldn't last. Across the room, Anna stood near a flickering screen, scanning through old communication logs. Her violet eyes were filled with thought. They will return, she said softly. Carter sighed. Yeah, I figured. He set his rifle down and crossed his arms. Question is, how long do we have before they come back with an even bigger force? Anna frowned. Not long. The Drakthul never give up. They will send more warriors, stronger ones. Maybe even a full invasion fleet. Carter exhaled. Great. They had won a battle, but not the war. And if the Drakthul brought an entire fleet, there was no way the two of them could fight alone. We need allies, Anna said, as if reading his thoughts. Carter nodded. Yeah, but who? Anna tapped on the console, and an old star map appeared. A section of space lit up in red. The Vesari survivors, my people. Some of them might still be out there, hiding from the Drakthul. Carter straightened. Can we find them? She hesitated. It is risky. I do not know if they will trust me. Or you. Carter smirked. We don't have a choice. If they don't help us, we're both dead anyway. Rilana's expression hardened. Then we go. A journey into the unknown. Carter powered up the dropship and locked in the coordinates. The journey would take them through uncharted space, but they had no other option. As they left the moon behind, Rilana sat beside him in the cockpit. She was quiet, staring out into the endless darkness. You okay? Carter asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then, in a soft voice, she said, I have not seen my people in a long time. I do not know if they will welcome me back. Carter glanced at her. They'd be crazy not to. You're the only reason we're still alive. She gave a small smile but didn't say anything more. Arrival at the Vasari refuge. After hours of travel, their ship finally reached the edge of Vasari-controlled space. It was nothing like Carter had expected. The refuge was a collection of asteroid bases, connected by floating docking stations and hidden inside a dense nebula. It was clear the Vasari were not living in luxury. They were survivors, always ready to run. As they approached, several small fighter ships appeared, surrounding them. A voice crackled through the radio. Unidentified vessel, state your purpose. Rilana leaned forward. This is Rilana of the Vasari Defense Force, requesting permission to dock. There was a long silence. Then, finally, the voice responded. Permission granted, but do not leave your ship until instructed. Carter sighed. Sounds friendly. Rilana gave him a knowing look. They are cautious. They have to be. The dropship docked inside a large asteroid hangar. The moment the doors opened, armed Vasari soldiers surrounded them, their weapons aimed directly at Carter. Human, one of the Vasari officers sneered. You bring an outsider here. Carter raised his hands in mock surrender. Relax, I'm not here to cause trouble. Rilana stepped forward. He saved my life, and he helped kill a Drakthul warlord. The Vasari exchanged uncertain looks. Then, from behind them, a tall Vasari woman stepped forward. Her golden armor shimmered under the dim lights, and her eyes held the same glow as Rilana's. Rilana, she said, her voice unreadable. You are alive. Rilana stiffened. Commander Silena. Carter sensed tension between them. Silena studied Rilana carefully, then turned her gaze to him. And this human, why should we trust him? Carter met her stare. Because I hate the Drakthul as much as you do. They wiped out my outpost, killed my friends. I want revenge just as much as you. Silena narrowed her eyes. Revenge is not enough. We need strategy, strength, numbers. Carter crossed his arms. Then let's work together. You need someone who knows human battle tactics, and I need an army. We can help each other. Silena considered this. Then, finally, she nodded. Very well. But if you betray us, human, I will kill you myself. Carter smirked. Noted. A plan for war. Inside the Vasari Command Center, a massive holographic map showed the locations of Drakthul fleets. They were spreading fast, conquering new systems. Silena pointed to one location. This is their next target. A human colony. If they take it, they will have a direct path to Earth. Carter clenched his fists. Then we stop them. Rilana stepped forward. The Drakthul are powerful, but they are arrogant. They do not expect resistance from us. Silena nodded. Then we will give them a battle they will never forget. Carter grinned. Now we're talking. The battle approaches. The Vasari fleet prepared for war. Fighters were fueled, weapons were loaded, and strategies were planned. Carter trained with the Vasari soldiers, teaching them human battle techniques while learning their own. Rilana and Carter spent every moment preparing. They both knew the next battle would be the most important one yet. As the fleet launched into space, Carter glanced at Rilana. Ready. She met his gaze, determination burning in her eyes. With you, always. The stars stretched before them, and the war for survival had truly begun. The Vasari fleet moved through the dark void of space, their ships gliding like silent hunters toward the battle ahead. Carter stood on the bridge of the command ship, his arms crossed as he studied the glowing holographic map. The Drakthul were already closing in on the human colony. "We don't have much time," he muttered. Ril Anna stood beside him, her violet eyes scanning the map. "We strike fast, before they can fully deploy their forces." Silena, the Vasari commander, stepped forward. "Our fleet is small, but we have the element of surprise. If we hit their command ship first, we can throw their forces into chaos." Carter nodded. "Good plan, but getting to that ship won't be easy." Ril Anna smirked. "It never is." Carter grinned. "All right then, let's make some noise." Into battle. The Vasari ships accelerated, slipping through the shadows of space. Their cloaking technology allowed them to get close before the Drakthul even realized they were there. The enemy fleet loomed ahead, massive warships, their hulls glowing with eerie red energy. At the center of the formation was the command ship, a towering dreadnought bristling with weapons. Carter took a deep breath. "Let's do this." Silena gave the order. "All ships, attack." The Vasari fleet burst out of the shadows, weapons blazing. Energy cannons ripped through the darkness, striking the Drakthul ships before they could react. The enemy fleet scrambled to respond, but the surprise attack had already done its damage. Carter and Ril Anna launched in a small fighter, weaving through the chaos. "Head for the command ship," Carter shouted. Ril Anna steered the fighter through a storm of laser fire, dodging enemy shots with expert skill. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Carter said, gripping his seat. Ril Anna smiled. "A little." The infiltration. The command ship loomed ahead, its shields flickering under the assault from the Vasari fleet. "We need to get inside," Carter said. Ril Anna nodded. "Hold on." She sent the fighter into a steep dive, racing toward the enemy ship. At the last second, she pulled up and fired the ship's thrusters in reverse. The sudden stop sent them crashing onto one of the dreadnought's landing bays. Carter coughed, shaking his head. "Remind me to never let you drive again." Ril Anna smirked. "Come on." They jumped out of the fighter, weapons ready. The landing bay was eerily empty. Too quiet. Then, a deep growl echoed through the air. Carter gripped his rifle. "Here we go." A dozen Drakthul warriors stormed toward them, their red eyes burning with rage. Carter and Ril Anna moved as one, firing their weapons and dodging enemy strikes. Carter shot down 2 warriors, while Ril Anna leaped over another, slashing it down with a plasma blade. More enemies came, but the 2 fought side by side, cutting a path through the chaos. The heart of the enemy. They reached the command center, blasting the doors open. Inside, the Drakthul warlord stood waiting. He was even larger than the others, his black armor glowing with crimson energy. "You dare challenge me?" he growled. Carter raised his rifle. "Yeah, we do." The warlord lunged, swinging a massive energy blade. Carter dodged, firing shots that barely scratched the enemy's armor. Ril Anna moved in, slashing at the warlord's joints. He roared in pain but struck back, knocking her to the ground. Carter gritted his teeth. Not today. He grabbed a fallen energy blade and charged. The warlord turned, ready to strike, but Ril Anna shot him in the knee, making him stumble. Carter didn't hesitate. He drove the energy blade straight into the warlord's chest. The enemy let out a final roar before collapsing. Victory. For now. With the warlord dead, the Drakthul fleet fell into disarray. The Vasari fleet took advantage, tearing through their ranks. Carter and Ril Anna escaped the command ship just before it exploded, watching as the remaining Drakthul ships flood into deep space. The battle was over. For now, a new beginning. Back on the Vasari command ship, Carter leaned against a railing, watching the stars. Ril Anna stood beside him. "You fought well." Carter chuckled. "So did you." She looked at him, her expression soft. What now? Carter exhaled. The Drakthal will be back, but we'll be ready. Rill Anna nodded. Together. Carter smiled. Always. As the Vezari fleet prepared for the next fight, Carter knew one thing. He had found a new purpose, a new family, and he wasn't going to lose them.